Good morning. Let's call this meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Desmond is absent. Commissioner Anderson is absent. Commissioner Becker,
Present.
Commissioner White,
Present.
Commissioner McKenzie. Here. Commissioner Willis. Here. Commissioner Whitburn,
Here.
Commissioner Vanderlyn is absent. Alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner McCann.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Drake.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Mathis.
Present.
So alternate Commissioner Mathis will vote in place of Commissioner Vanderlyn, who is present. And there is a quorum with 6 members present.
Thank you. We will begin this morning with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner White.
Please stand with me and join me in the pledge. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Do we have any commissioners participating remotely this morning? I'm not aware that we do. Does not look like we have any commissioners participating remotely. Let's review today's agenda. We'll turn it over to Executive Officer Simons.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So no changes to the agenda per se. So what we posted early last week has held. That means, Commission, you have a number of consent items and then one public hearing and then a few interesting discussion items on the business calendar. We do have one supplemental piece of correspondence that involves 7A and a letter from the Port of San Diego. Staff will address that when the time comes up. And then for those who are here with us today or participating remotely, you certainly can provide comments to the Commission by following the instructions on the agenda. For those here, just simply filling out a speaker slip and handing it off to Do, and he will make sure that it gets to the Vice Chair. So with that, we are good to go.
Thank you, Executive Officer Simons. Let's move to non-agenda public comment. This provides an opportunity for anyone who would like to comment on anything that is not on today's agenda, but is within the purview of LAFCO. We'll begin with speakers who are present here in chambers, and then we will take any online public comment. Here in person, we have 2 people who have submitted public comment requests, Jake Wiley and Jack Beebe, and we will begin by asking Mr. Wiley to please step up and provide your public comment this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Jake Wiley. I'm the general manager at Rainbow Municipal Water District. So fairly new to that spot over the last couple months, but wanted to just make a couple of comments today. Extremely grateful for Keen and his staff and just all the work that they put into what is a very unique reorganization application. So I wanted to start with that. Personally, I'm incredibly grateful that, only being in this position for a couple of months, and it does appear we have the potential for a clear path forward. And so that is, I'm incredibly grateful for that. I'll just leave it right there. So let's see. I know this has been a long process, and the commissioners as well. Just a tremendous, even just looking back at the record, I've kind of been drinking from the fire hose, to be quite honest, for the last couple of months. But looking back, so much time and effort went into this, and I know a lot of challenges and those kind of things. So again, appreciative of the commissioners, and I think, there's an opportunity today that this may actually be the last formal action that has to happen by this commission. So again, really, really grateful for that. And I know, really what this commission and the staff came to was validated really by what happened on November 7th, 95%. Well, 94 if you're Fallbrook, but it's not a competition. It's not a competition. Really validated by the folks that we serve. And so, again, just I think a really great showing there. And I'll just kind of leave it there. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to come meet you all and have an opportunity to speak. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Mr. Beebe.
Yeah,
Thank you. I know you guys thought you were all done with hearing from me, and hopefully after today, it'll be a while, or it'll be just similar as Mr. Wiley. I really want to thank Keen, Priscilla, the staff, a lot of executive officers when we came to them and said, hey, we've got this concept we want to bring to you, would have ran away from us. But I think, the staff here did the right thing. There's always a need for, as governments, to look at, is the government structure right? Changing that structure, if it's, is it too big, is it too small? How does it weigh regionalization versus local needs? And I really appreciate, staff's work on that. The commission taking all the time that they did to go through it. I also want to say to the commissioners, I know some, had a view of local control. Some saw the benefits of regionalization. I really respect everyone who fell on whatever side of it, just the fact that they went through and, were willing to listen and, understand those different points of view. Also, as you can see, it was really important to our community. So, this wasn't, an item that people were sort of indifferent about. The fact, LAFCO, the commission staff, was able to come up with a way to say, hey, there's rules here, but we're going to, put some additional conditions to try to, address other concerns and move a path forward. It was really an impressive effort to get through. And so I just, want to reiterate really thanking, the staff, the commission, and, we are at a point now too where it isn't so combative regionally. We figured out how to kind of come together, and that's in front of you today, so that each party can kind of move forward and deal with the bigger issues that exist, especially on the Water Authority side. So really appreciate it, and hopefully I won't be back here for some time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beebe. Clerk, do we have any public comment online?
No public comment.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to our consent items, which are items 5A through 5H. Let me ask if we have any public comment on the consent items that you're aware of?
None.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent items? All right, we have a motion from Commissioner McKenzie and a second from Commissioner Willis. Any discussion on the consent items? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie? Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis? Commissioner Mathis? So there are 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to our public hearing for the proposed Colina Fuerte Via Ascenso reorganization. Do we have any commissioner disclosures of ex parte communications on this item? Seeing none, Executive Officer Simons, let's hear this item.
Great, and I'm going to ask Michaela Peters for the staff presentation.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Michaela Peters on behalf of LAFCO staff. The reorganization proposal before the Commission has been initiated by a landowner petition with support from both subject agencies, but nonetheless requires a noticed hearing due to some potential sphere actions, which I will detail shortly. The proposal itself seeks 2 distinct boundary change approvals from the Commission. 1, the first and primary request involves annexing 5 unincorporated acres in the Rancho Santa Fe community to the Santa Fe Irrigation District, and in doing so, expand the agency's authorized retail water service area. The secondary request involves detaching the same 5 unincorporated acres from the Alivenhain Municipal Water District, and in doing so, retract its authorized retail water service area. As for the affected territory itself, the reference 5 unincorporated acres is being shown on the current slide. It comprises 1 legal parcel with a situs of 18100 Via Ascenso, which lies in the northeast perimeter of Rancho Santa Fe near its interface with the Elfin Forest community. The subject parcel is undeveloped and pertinently includes an open space easement that was established in the late 1980s when the parcel was one of the 44 created as part of a county subdivision and gated community. The open space easement's footprint is shown on this next slide and covers just about 60% of the subject parcel. Coming back to the proposal itself, the purpose is to sync up the conditions on the ground by navigating the existing open space easement with the landowner applicant's interest to develop the subject parcel with a single-family residence and an accessory dwelling unit as allowed under current county zoning. And the underlying sync-up means coming to LAFCO today to allow the landowner applicant to switch their authorized water service provider from a Leavenhain MWD into Santa Fe ID, given the latter can be accessed without disturbing the open space easement. As for the administrative review performed by staff, all statutory and local policies sufficiently check out and are detailed in the agenda report with one qualifier that merits attention from the Commission. This qualifier ties to the concurrent need for sphere amendments to accommodate the requested boundary changes. Notably, LAFCO Policy L106 says LAFCO shall produce a municipal service review to inform any sphere amendments if the last MSR on record is more than 5 years old, unless waived by the Commission. In this case, staff believes a waiver is appropriate given the relatively modest size of the amendments, i.e. the 5 acres, plus the overall certainty established in analyzing the proposal's impacts. Accordingly, and assuming the Commission is agreeable to the waiver, we recommend you proceed with all of the following actions. Approve the reorganization as submitted with matching sphere amendments for both subject agencies. Approve the standard conditions along with waiving protest, and approve exemption findings under CEQA. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
None.
Thank you very much, Clerk. We have the staff recommendation that has been put forward to us. Do we have any commission discussion on this item or a motion from the commission?
Keen, do we have any opposition that's presented itself on this?
We do not have any opposition.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we go with the staff's proposal.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Willis. We have a motion from Commissioner Willis. We have a second from Commissioner White. Seeing no further discussion, Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie? Yes. Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
So 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. That brings us to our business calendar. We're going to begin with item 7A, a preliminary assessment of commission oversight duties and the Port of San Diego. Executive Officer Simons, please lead us into this presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So, on behalf of Chris, I'm going to start us off on this presentation and then perhaps rely on Chris to help me out on some questions or some additional details as the commission sees fit. But this item itself, as the Vice Chair noted, is staff's preliminary assessment on a rather unique but still straightforward question that was posed from the dais to your staff a few meetings back, and that is, what exactly is LAFCO's oversight responsibilities as it relates to the port, San Diego Port, or as it is better known, the San Diego Unified Port District? Better said, does LAFCO's oversight responsibilities apply to this special district as it does to the other 80 or so special districts here in San Diego County? So what you have before you is staff's take on the topic, albeit in a qualified nature. And I'm going to talk about why it's qualified in a bit. But to just kind of jump right to the heart of the conclusion, your staff believes that based on everything that we have available to us to date, that yes, the San Diego Port is subject to this commission. And we've reached that conclusion, albeit again in a tentative sense, by re-examining and building on some past analysis into the topic that your staff had independently taken up a few years ago. That analysis had stalled out behind the scenes for different reasons, but nevertheless, as part of this inquiry, we went back into the statutes, both LAFCO statute, port statute, and have come to this tentative conclusion as referenced. a tentative conclusion that also adds that we believe that the port qualifies as an independent special district, which means not only would it be eligible, like the other independent special districts in San Diego, to run a member to sit on this commission, but also to be proportionally responsible for part of the LAFCO budget. Now, the key reasons as to why staff has reached its tentative conclusion are certainly detailed in the agenda report. Some of the high comments are summarized on the screen behind me. And I'd be happy to go into more detail, but I do want to talk about why we're coming to you with a qualification rather than just simply, yes, this is a district subject to LAFCO. And that is, as of date, we have not received a formal statement or opinion from the port. Now, what we do have, and it's a supplemental correspondence that I referenced earlier, is a letter dated November 27th that all of you should have, and we posted it online. And it's a letter from the port that offers up what I would characterize as their thoughts or observations on why the port may not be subject to LAFCO. So again, it's not a definitive response to LAFCO. It's simply offering up some observations as to why they believe they may not be subject to LAFCO. Myself, Chris, have some thoughts on the letter, but nevertheless, I think it's a good start of some long overdue communication. I will also add as a supplement, Vice Chair and Commission, Chris and I had the opportunity to meet with senior leadership for the port on Friday afternoon. That included the chair and vice chair of the port and their acting CEO and intergovernmental affairs director. It was a good discussion, and I think we all left the meeting with a commitment to look at every available piece of information. And if the port is subject to LAFCO, it's subject to LAFCO. But equally, if it's not, and staff will be the first one to raise their hand and say this, if they're not subject to LAFCO, well, then they're not. The key issue for us, though, is we need something definitive to point to be able to answer the question that was asked to staff. If the port is not subject to LAFCO, there needs to be something that says it, because otherwise, everything that we're looking at suggests it is. So in broad strokes, that's our assessment to date. This opportunity or this item today is for you to hear our first response on the question posed to staff, ask questions of staff, and perhaps give us some feedback as we look to finalize a determination, perhaps as early as your February meeting, but do so in the spirit of certainly working with the port. So with that, myself, Chris are available if you have some questions, but this is for you to absorb and discuss as you see fit. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Executive Officer Simons. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
None.
Thank you, Clerk. All right, we will now open commission discussion on this item, if there is any. Yes, Commissioner Willis.
Hi, Keen. I look at the precedent in other areas like Stockton, Ventura, and I'm trying to understand. I guess there's some hesitancy from the port that they don't want LAFCO to oversee them. So my first question is, if we don't oversee them, who would? Are they going to have any oversight from anybody?
Locally, no. Now and I'll defer to Chris to help me fill this in. I think their main comment, Chris, is it not that they believe that the State Lands Commission is their primary oversight body?
Correct. And part of the discussion that we had and some of the examples that were given during our meeting about a local oversight role is that if the port, for example, were to build a park, whether they could operate the park, whether they could actually build the park in and of itself, what are they allowed to do based on what the State Lands Commission will give them authority to do, understanding that the port cannot provide municipal services in a sense. And so whether they actually oversee operations of the park, things of that sort, those are things that they have to get approval of, their argument, from the Lands Commission. Therefore, that is their overarching oversight body, is the Lands Commission.
I guess what I'm thinking out loud about is that if the port, San Diego Port is opposing this, LAFCO, what's the problem? I don't understand. I mean, it's not like LAFCO is a big ogre getting ready to zap you or anything. I mean, when we do municipal service reviews, I've had people come back to me and say, I've used this as a reference for our district. So there's so many positives that, well, if we do an MSR for somebody, if they're asking for an annexation, and a lot of times we come and say, well, have you considered this? I mean, this should be looked as a positive, not a negative. That's my view. And I just don't quite understand what the big concern would be if we had oversight.
Thank you, Commissioner Willis. Commissioner McKenzie.
I'm just glad to see this come forward. I only brought this up about 12, 15 years ago, and as you can see, it didn't go anywhere. And I don't, that was another EO, so I have no idea why, but it wasn't the hill I was ready to die on. But the letter from the port sounds very positive. They're not jumping up and down and beating the hammer that, no, you have no oversight, and we're going to, ignore whatever you say. It sounds like it's going to be a cooperative discussion. We think this, we think that. And I guess somebody's going to have to decide what the impasse is. But I think I read somewhere here that your first communication, because I think we discussed this probably in your interview for the position about my thoughts on the port. And I think you wrote a letter a couple years back, and this is their first response. So it kind of got lost in the mail then. I'm glad to see a positive response, so.
Very much so.
Thank you very much, Commissioner McKenzie. Yes, Commissioner Drake.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to concur with both Barry and Joe that the Port District is very invasive across the entire county. They have many boundaries with many agencies that are also managed by LAFCO in one way or another, and that to a great degree we could be a benefit to the Port District in terms of avoiding litigation over property boundaries or over service agreement issues. We can bring strength to the Port District, and that should be a value. Also, we have, I think, a very legitimate oversight issue in terms of quality of governance for the citizens of the county. And so those again accrue in a positive way, not a punitive way, to the relationship with the Port District. I also have to have a disclosure. Rhonda Caniglio, who is their new general manager, has a niece, Amanda Caniglio, who oddly enough is my insurance agent. So I just wanted to share that extremely tenuous relationship.
Is she reducing your rates?
She did, but not because of that.
Are you sure?
I think so.
Didn't you take an ARP class to get that reduction?
All right. Any further commissioner discussion on this item? Yes, Commissioner Mathis.
Just a question, where do we go from here?
That's what I was going to ask.
So certainly, and I'll ask Chris to confirm this, I think we left the meeting with a commitment that we were going to somehow set up a discussion with State Lands Commission. Was there anything else, or was that on point?
No, that was the thrust of the conversation, was to redirect and have a conversation with the State Lands Commission, understand their purview, their determination about their level of authority over the port and the relationship with LAFCO. I will say as well, too, is definitely an opportunity for LAFCO to introduce ourselves to the commissioners themselves and let them know that we are not an ogre. Some of the roles that we provide, some of the resources that we provide to the port as well, too. So part of this is, I think Keen put it very well, starting to date and just court one another and understand each other's sides, and then go from there. But it was a very positive discussion.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cate. Thank you to the executive officer and to the commission for your observations. Seeing no further comment, I will echo the appreciation to staff for researching this question and communicating with the port and bringing this item to us today. Again, this is an informational item only, so no action will be taken today. We'll move on to item 7B, which is the draft comprehensive update to personnel policies. This is another informational item. Executive Officer Simons.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I will cover this item, albeit on behalf of Priscilla Mumpower, who did the bulk of the work here in partnership with the Commission's consultant at RGS before she went off on maternity leave. And so the item itself is a first, but nevertheless comprehensive draft update to LAFCO's personnel policies. And they come to you by way of both your adopted work plan, right, and a scope of work that this commission approved a few meetings back, and that's been our map in going forward and working with RGS in developing what hopefully is a good first swing out of the gate. And the idea here, for those who remember when we were talking about our adopted work plan before we adopted it, was this commission has a series of personnel policies. We call them Rule 6, and I think they're the first attachment to your agenda packet. And those personnel policies, for the most part, have incrementally been developed over the last 60 years, but largely so before LAFCO really became a standalone independent agency. So as you go through our existing Personnel Policies Commission, you will see quite a bit of reference and or literal copying of what the County of San Diego personnel policies are. And as I can attest, having been here now 6 years, managing LAFCO by way of personnel policies that contemplate a much bigger organization like a Civil Service Commission can be challenging. So the idea here is let's take all the good stuff that's in our existing personnel policies and let's move them into a standalone LAFCO document that's scaled to our rather unique needs as a governmental agency that has less than 10 full-time employees. So that's the core goal of this update. And so by way of just offering up some broad comments, and I know some of you may want to go into details, that's great, and I already had some good comments offline from Commissioner McKenzie. What I thought I would do is just offer some big picture comments on what this draft update is attempting to do. So there are 3 particular areas by way of the approved scope of work that the update looks at. You have working conditions or worker conditions, employment administration, and then leave administration. So those are the 3 kind of core bundled topics. With respect to working conditions, this draft certainly tries to modernize our policies relative to current HR practices. But it starts by making it very clear, and this is certainly a seminal comment, that all employees, myself included, but certainly the rest of your employees commission, are at will, right? The current policies kind of are a bit murky on this topic. While we believe that all employees are at will, the reality is our current policies don't really make that clear, again, by referencing things like a Civil Service Commission. So by way of just fundamental structure, that's a premising comment that affects the rest of the document. Other things in that worker or work conditions, dealing with reasonable accommodations. If you go through the current policy, what was reasonable accommodations in 2000 don't necessarily apply now in 2023, so we spent quite a bit of time trying to update that. And then also teleworking, right? So this commission explicitly prohibited teleworking up until the pandemic. And just for the benefit of a little story, since Commissioner McKenzie was there, when I was going through the employment process and I was trying to negotiate my contract, Commissioner McKenzie and the rest of the commission, when I asked, can I agree to a telework provision, said no. And I was so surprised that A, how quick you were to say no, and then B, to learn that that just wasn't done in the county of San Diego, that teleworking just wasn't an option. Post-pandemic, we created a bit of a bridge policy. This now takes it a little further and really details what are the expectations of employee-employer on teleworking. So that's kind of the working conditions. Now, on employment administration, certainly we dive into topics relating to the ability or the benefits that each job classification here at LAFCO is entitled to. Right now, if you were to look at the existing policies, they're largely referencing and telling you to go look at the county website. Here we make an attempt to kind of delineate what exactly are the benefit packages per employee classification. We also try to gingerly address more modern issues such as attire and things of that nature in social media use. And then last but not least on leaves, everything from, the modern take of what your accrual rates are per classification, but also, the interface with worker compensation issues that come up and do come up here at LAFCO. And we're a bit of a unique entity that our worker compensation unit is still the county. However, if anything goes south, the county's very quick to tell us, well, that's on you. You got to figure that out. So we're trying to bridge a lot of different gaps in the policies. Again, being mindful that we have this very good historical relationship with the County of San Diego, but through their own interests, would like to see LAFCO have more separation in standalone policies. So this is hopefully a good start. Today is an opportunity for you to tell us, Commission, if we're on the right track, if there are any topics you'd like to have us flag for RGS as we finalize this document, perhaps as early as February. And just one note as a qualifier, what is not in this document, because it wasn't included in the approved scope of work, is any amendments or revisions relating to job duties, classifications, or salary ranges. Certainly, if that's an interest to the Commission, that could be done as part of a future work plan project, but that was not included in this current effort. And then last but not least, what we will do as we look to finalize the item is to obviously smooth out and add some design elements to the document, but also we do have some comments from Commission Counsel's office that we have yet to incorporate into this. They're more for consistency purposes, but we will certainly work with Holly's office before we present anything to you for action. So broad strokes, Vice Chair, that is what we have for you today, is to check in to make sure we're on the right path. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
None.
Thank you. All right, we will now open commission discussion on this item. This is an informational item, so no motion is necessary. We'll begin our discussion with Commissioner Willis.
Yeah, I can see how the cookie cutter approach just doesn't cut it here. Keen, so the next step would be, do you finalize a first draft and get it to us by February?
So ideally, we would finalize this first draft, and unless, there are substantive issues that you flagged today that RGS just simply cannot get back to us in time for a February meeting, absent that, yeah, we would expect to complete this as early as February. And that would also be the time, if there are additional topics, and I mentioned two, that you would like to see as a part of another scope of work, we could start getting that in the queue as well.
So RGS is the HR source?
Yes, so they're maybe a year ago or so, you contracted with Regional Government Services Authority, RGS, they're out of Carmel, to provide kind of as-needed HR support services. And one of those is tapping into their expertise in developing this kind of document.
Well, I'll just say I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you, Commissioner Willis. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. One, back to your job descriptions and salaries. I think if that's something that, Keen, that you look at that you think needs to be addressed, then that would be your discussion with the commission to put it on the work plan. So I kind of, as a commissioner, I leave that up to you whether or not it needs to be revised or not. But the other thing is, there's a lot of information here and a lot of thought if you're going to actually read this. And I would like to see this bifurcated. This has been on the work plan for a number of years, so I don't see a critical path that we need to finalize all of this come February. I'd like to see, section 2 come back maybe in February with some changes, and then come back with the next. So we have the opportunity to look at it, and we all have policies and procedures and see how those mesh with what we have here. Because I have a couple comments, and one starts on 278 with telecommuting with equipment. It says that the commission may provide equipment, but is not obligated to do so. If they're working from home with their computer, we have no idea what kind of security they have on that computer. And to be able to access documents that are on our server, we don't know what they have. I think, talking with Commissioner Drake, they have laptops, and they give those to those who are going to be telecommuting, and that is their source. They don't go online and play Pokemon. It's strictly for work because it has all of the information that they need. So I would like to see that particular section changed. And then a question, and this is more for legal and insurance, if they are telecommuting and they do trip over all of their extension cords from the wall to the dining room table, are they covered by workers' comp?
That's something we can take a look at and be prepared to answer when we bring these back.
Okay, and the only reason I asked that is that the JPIA for water districts, that was one of their comments that had said, no, they're not covered by workers' comp. So I don't know who our insurer is, and that would like to look at that. And then on the same insurance comment is that I do know that if an employee is using the district car, commissioned car, that they are covered. But the question is, if they incidentally take someone else somewhere and they're in an accident, how is that coverage? And I have a real problem with the word incidental being filtered through this document because I don't know what the definition is. So those are just some of the comments.
Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. Any further, Commissioner Drake?
Yeah, I just want to echo Commissioner McKenzie's comments about workers' comp. One of the things we found at the JPIA is the real issue for workers' comp in the home is ergonomics. And we've had a lot of claims against ergonomic issues. Most people at home have kind of casual relationships with tables and chairs, and they don't necessarily do a good job of it. And so if you have somebody who does a lot of keystroking and a lot of effort, they can end up with carpal tunnel syndrome or problems in their back or shoulders. And so you might offer assistance to people to say, here's how we can make your home work experience as good as your work experience at the office. So that becomes a real serious issue with a lot of pretty big claims. And so it's a valid concern, and I appreciate Commissioner McKenzie's issue. It does raise the issue, I'm not quite sure how our employees are covered from the county, either by all kinds of insurance issues, workers' comp, property liability. I don't actually know. Maybe the staff knows what the answer to that is.
That never came up before.
The county does administer our workers' comp, so any claims that come through there are administered through the county. I don't know, as I sit here today, I suspect it's through a contractual relationship, but the county administers our workers' comp right now.
Are they self-insured?
The county?
Yes.
Well, now I'm going to look at, well, no, we don't have any supervisors here.
Yeah, it's hard to
I think
tell.
they are.
Which could be a problem, depending upon what their policies are. So it's something to just take a look at. Does it meet our needs and our obligations to our employees? I'm concerned about their safety and ease of
Will do.
access. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Drake.
think finding out that information may push this to a later date than first meeting in February.
Just as a follow-up, I see what Joe's saying about this telecommuting equipment. Could be a security issue if they're operating from home. So I think that needs to be looked at also. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further commissioner discussion on this item? Seeing none, thank you to staff for bringing this forward. We'll look forward to coming back to the commission at the appropriate time. We will move on then to item 7C, and that is a discussion of LAFCO fee waivers, another informational item. Executive Officer Simons.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I'm going to ask Carol Arrow-Neiman to lead us.
Thank you. So before I begin this presentation, I do just want to make reference that you guys should have a copy of Agenda Item 7C in front of you. I know this was distributed a little later than anticipated last week, so we just want to make sure you guys all have the hard copy before you. So with that, good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Carol Arrow-Neiman, Analyst 2, on behalf of San Diego County LAFCO. So similar to the earlier item on the San Diego Port, this item also responds to a recent inquiry from the dais via Commissioner Willis and is presented today for discussion and your collective feedback with helping to inform what, if any, next steps you would like staff to take. Now, the topic itself ties to LAFCO's fee schedule and the suggestion to provide targeted fee waivers and/or fee reductions to our funding agencies, specifically with an aim of helping some of our smaller funding agencies that may have limited resources. Now, Commissioner Willis noted he has heard from some of the smaller special districts that would like to file otherwise logical boundary changes with the Commission, but have not done so because of our fees. So in response to Commissioner Willis's inquiry, staff has proceeded to bring forward a rather broad agenda item today to facilitate the discussion on the dais. Now this includes, and as I will show here on the next few slides, summarizing our current fee schedule and its existing allowances involving fee waivers and fee reductions, as well as identifying a few potential options in providing targeted relief to our funding agencies. So here on this first slide is a summary of our existing fee schedule and its core features, and specifically, the current fee schedule was comprehensively updated in February 2019. It is largely a fixed fee schedule as opposed to a time and material format. The fixed fee amounts are determined by applying a composite hourly staff rate against a set amount of hours it is expected to take to process common proposal types. The current composite hourly rate is $220 and proportionally recovers both staff costs and overhead costs. And lastly, most application filing fees at LAFCO can range between $6,405 and $23,250. On this next slide is a summary of our existing waivers and fee reductions under the current fee schedule. And these are divided between discretionary and pre-approved. So the discretionary allowances are determined by the Commission and are based on determining financial hardship that, if mitigated, benefits the public, or if the underlying request is consistent with a past LAFCO recommendation. Pre-approved allowances, on the other hand, are confirmed by the executive officer at the time of the application filing and cover the following three scenarios. So the first scenario provides a 75% fee reduction to applications that are tied to addressing a public health or a public threat involving water or wastewater. The second scenario provides a 50% fee reduction to applications that are tied to island annexations. And the third scenario is a pre-approved scenario that involves 50% fee reductions to applications that are tied to duck annexations and by duck disadvantaged unincorporated communities. And now on this third and final slide are some potential expansions and allowable fee waivers and reductions that staff has produced at this very preliminary stage for the benefit of the discussion. So under option 1, this is a one-time fee waiver that has no restrictions. Under this option, any funding agency can make use of a one-time fee waiver to file an application with LAFCO, irrespective of the total cost for the application. The second option is also similar to the first option in that it is also a one-time fee waiver. However, this option does have some restrictions. And those restrictions involve that the application waiver does not exceed the total budget contributions for that funding agency, their contributions to LAFCO over the last 10 years. And the final option is an annual fee reduction. So this option would allow any funding agency to make use of a fee reduction to cover an application filing. And under this option, the fee reduction would be up to but not exceed that funding agency's total budget contribution to LAFCO for that fiscal year. So as mentioned, staff is presenting these options to help illustrate some potential paths the commission can take, should it be your interest to do so. And if there's any interest in any of these three options or other options, staff would most certainly like an opportunity to vet this item and perhaps get some feedback and input from our cities and special districts advisory committees. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation and pass it back to you, Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
None.
Thank you. We will now open up commission discussion on this item, and we will begin with Commissioner Willis.
Yes. My original thought on this was that, as I said, I was out there when I was campaigning, and I would talk to smaller districts, and it came to my realization is then that some of them were just flat out not wanting to even pursue annexation because they were so afraid of the costs involved. So that was my initial intention was to, how do we get these smaller districts so they can afford this? But now I'm realizing it too, that maybe there is also a need for even some of the bigger districts that, there's some, that they have that one time where they could have an annexation done and get a reprieve, so to speak, a one-time reprieve every 3 years or whatever it is. Did you put a yearly, was this every 3 years that you were proposing on the unrestricted?
One of the spot was 10.
No, on the unrestricted one.
On the unrestricted, so that's over the last 10 years of their total budget contributions to LAFCO. So we just want to make sure, this is just an option, right?
No, I'm talking about the unrestricted. You're talking about restricted, right?
The unrestricted is, so that would be irrespective of the application cost. So it'd be a one-time fee waiver that any funding agency can make use of, irrespective of the total application cost.
So the discussion would be how often we would allow that. So in my mind, and so I'd like to hear from other commissioners. You hear what I'm trying to get at, and I'm hoping that we can do something that will give some smaller, particularly smaller agencies, relief. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Willis. Any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Drake.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how big an issue this is. I know that the LAFCO does not operate with a gigantic budget. We have obviously allocations that pay for the most of our stuff. How much of our budget actually depends upon these fees?
So by general rule, we try to recover about 15%. So 15% of 2 million, give or take.
Thank you, Commissioner Drake. Commissioner McKenzie.
Oh, okay. Our budget is around, what, 2 million? So if we instituted any of these, let's for instance, the one-time fee waiver, what would have been our accounting hit to our budget if Rainbow and Fallbrook took advantage of this?
So
Sorry, guys.
Erica
It's free.
actually,
It'd have been, yes, yeah. How much do you, could I ask through the chair, could you ask them what they're here, Fallbrook's annual apportionment is, or maybe the executive officer knows that?
Let me give the executive officer first crack at that.
well, so the first question was, what was the Rainbow Fallbrook application charge at LAFCO? Erica did that math, and it was $562,000. So that would be potentially a waiver that you would have considered. I believe Fallbrook's annual contribution to LAFCO is in the 20 range. Rainbow's probably about 18,000.
Okay, so 10,000, 15,000 times 10 would be 150,000, I think, if I get enough zeros in there. So that's a hit, that's a good hit to the budget. To Commissioner Willis's comment, well, the small districts and maybe the medium-sized districts, well, sometimes the large districts, and then what's the definition? Where do we go? What's the cutoff for small, medium, and large? And how much do we really, I would like to see this come, if they want a fee waiver, if the MSR says that they really should, increase their sphere, they need to do this, they need to annex, then we need to work with their district, small, medium, or large. And, okay, what is your budget? If you've got a budget that's large enough to cover the fees, then, okay, maybe we do reduce it. But I can't see reducing it, and I can't see reducing it for 10 years. Our MSRs are predicated on 5 years. So why would we go out and calculate the 10 years? I would like it just to stay as is.
Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. Commissioner Becker.
Yeah, I agree. I think at this point, we do a pretty good job of, figuring this out already. I don't know. I guess I didn't hear the answer to whether or not this is a problem. Have you had people come to LAFCO asking for fee waivers, and how in the past have we handled that?
So through the chair, yes, we have had requests for fee waivers that fall under the discretionary category. So every so often, people will come to this commission. I think the last was the Borrego Springs reorganization. So it's not frequent, but it does happen. That said, I do want to just acknowledge, having spoken to some of the smaller districts, as I think Commissioner Willis has, there may be just a natural flow of interest that doesn't even register at LAFCO because, as Commissioner Willis said, okay, they're just put off by the potential fees and they're not coming to us to begin with. So it's an issue, but to the question of the commission, what tools do you want to see, if any, added to perhaps address this need, albeit a need that is somewhat unknown in terms of quantity?
And are we able to do that on a case-by-case basis then? Do you feel comfortable with that scenario, or?
Well, staff does, because the commission is the one that ultimately has to
decide? Yeah.
I suppose part of this is providing some upfront assurances of some kind of pre-approved option, which I think that's what staff was looking to do, create a new option under the pre-approved allowance where there would be only a ministerial, hey, we've met all the requirements and we know we can go forward with that. So that's the spirit of the analysis to date.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker. Commissioner Willis.
Yeah, is it possible that we could have some kind of sliding scale, again, for the ones that are, very small districts and they really can't afford it? I'm just trying to think, getting some kind of relief to the smaller districts. So.
Well, so through the Vice Chair, in absence of council saying you can't do it that way, this is your fee schedule. You can certainly develop it as you see fit. In talking a little bit with Commissioner McKenzie offline, a good suggestion was, the last time the fee schedule was looked at in any substantive way was 2019. Most of the current commissioners weren't here at the time. We could park this into a more comprehensive update if you want to do that as part of a 24-25 work plan project. That might be also an option.
Because, it is a concern, but we've got to be concerned how it affects the budget. So, but again, the concern for the smaller districts being able to even venture out to for a period, that's what I'm trying to look at. So if it is possible to come up with, like a sliding scale of some sort for those that are the less, budget. The district with much smaller budgets.
I think we can work with staff to evaluate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Willis. Commissioner McKenzie?
My only concern with sliding scale is finding where those lines are. It's just like any other sliding scale for dues, for instance. Your budget is pick a number 40 million, and you have to pay this. But if it's 39 million and 900, you pay less. So we're going to have to find some differentiation where there is a large difference between a $1 million and a $2 million budget, or whatever. I've just seen it too many times and especially coming up with dues. And look at the state where your income is being charged for your utilities. It starts at 69 for the cheap. Well, if you make 69,100, now you're paying twice as much. So you've got to be careful how we do a sliding scale.
Well,
If we go to any of this, I definitely would not support a 10-year look back.
Yeah, and I just want to remind people that what we're asking for in these fees are staff time. So staff is actually doing this work, and it's costing, bottom line is probably $6,000 for just, anything. So we need to be mindful of that staff is going to be working then for nothing if we allow this. So I just wanted to remind people of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker. If I'm hearing the sense of the body correctly, it sounds like there may be some interest in finding something that we might do such that smaller agencies do not feel inhibited from approaching LAFCO, but at the same time not impacting the LAFCO budget in a significant way by wrapping larger agencies into any sort of a fee waiver adjustment that it could impact the budget, but also not coming up with a mechanism that is completely arbitrary either, something that would make sense. So perhaps that is something that staff could noodle on and see if there is an approach that takes those different factors into account and then bring it back at the time that you feel like you have something to offer to the commission. Does that capture the sense of the commission correctly? Let me ask Commissioner Willis, and then we'll go to Commissioner McKenzie again.
Yeah, and I see what Christie's saying. I mean, even though they're a smaller district, there probably needs to be some kind of fee to help with the staff time. So, but I mean, just a significant enough one that they really feel like, look at it, at least we could afford it. We have to come up with some fees, but we can afford it. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Back to Commissioner McKenzie.
Well, I agree with the line of comment from Commissioner Becker that, and I haven't heard from Commissioner White, if there is a, thought process of staying with where we're at, then why go through this exercise? Remember, we do have an MSRs, and that's where we just make the suggestion, recommendation that they annex, that they increase their sphere. And maybe that is the point in time that their communication to that district says, and you already have a public hearing or public meetings with those districts and cities telling them, laying out your MSR. At any point in that communications would be the time that you tell them that you need to do, this is where our recommendations are. We're recommending that you annex these 500 acres, and they're looking at you and say, yeah, but your fees are, we don't have that kind of money. That's where your communications come in that, okay, let's look at it, come back with your proposal, let's look at it, let's take it to the commission and see whether or not, what kind of a reduction we can do. We can't give it to you for free.
Okay, I'd just like to interject. When I was out there, one of the districts had a property there that's just been sitting there for years. And they never even wanted to venture the subject. So I don't think we should, I know you're saying MSR, but these things are just looking, I think that I'm willing to bet there's more of them lurking around out there. That they'd like to do this, but they're too afraid of the fees, period. So that's what I'm trying to address.
All right, thank you. I think we've heard a variety of perspectives on this. This is sorry, yes, Commissioner Mathis.
It sounds like we find ourselves getting into a situation where it's, when they ask, well, what's the fee? And we're asking, well, what can you afford? And that's kind of a difficult place to be as far as trying to measure how we can measure that against the staff effort involved. So we have to be careful we don't fall into that trap.
Thank you, Commissioner Mathis. Any further commissioner comment? Seeing none, this is an informational item. No action in front of us today. We've got a diverse range of perspectives on this. We will leave this with the staff and wish you the best of luck. Let us know when you have something you'd like us to take up on this matter again. All right, that brings us to our executive officer report, Mr. Simons.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. So just a couple of comments. Two under the header of, some projects that we're working on that may start coming towards the dais sooner than later. The big one is Chris Cade has been our liaison working with the La Jolla Committee to incorporate, if they want to make the April or March 25 ballot, they're going to start having to look to get some signatures soon. So Chris is working with them, and it would not surprise me if something substantive comes out of that and gets filed with LAFCO, perhaps even before our February meeting. But I just want to make the commission aware that that hasn't gone away. In fact, it's certainly going forward in at least behind the scenes. Adam Wilson has been working on the startup of year 2 of our RCD ad hoc committee work. You may recall the success of year 1. Year 2 is kind of getting to the meat of issues where we're going to help facilitate what we think are some logical boundary adjustments between the 3 RCDs now that we've gotten some peace among the 3 agencies. So those are some projects that are making their way towards the commission. A couple of internal notes. I want to announce that longtime commission clerk Tammy Luckett has retired after 20 years. We wish Tammy the best in her future activities. And then concurrently want to congratulate Erica Sellen on her promotion to the commission clerk and no longer with the acting title. Again, Erica's done a great job just filling in over the last few months, so thank you, Erica. And then last but not least, there is a Christmas or holiday party at the LAFCO offices on Monday, December 18th. Some of you have already RSVP'd. If you are still on the fence on that, please do consider coming, even if it's just to swing by and say hi and RSVP to Carol if that is the case. And other than that, that's the EO report. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any commissioner announcements or requests for future items? Seeing none, the commission will now move into closed session for a conference with legal counsel. This will be regarding existing litigation involving LAFCO and the San Diego County Water Authority. I will recuse myself from this closed session because I sit on the board of directors of the Water Authority, and I will ask Commissioner Becker to chair the closed session this morning.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Wait till we get the room cleared. All right, great. All right, we are back from closed session, and Madam General Counsel, do we have any reportable action?
Yes, we had a vote 5-0 to approve settlement with San Diego County Water Authority and the 2 detaching districts on terms consistent with documents reviewed during closed session. As mentioned, that vote was 5-0. Vice Chair Stephen Whitburn recused himself, and those voting in favor were Commissioners Becker, McKenzie, White, Willis, and voting in place of Commissioner Vanderland was Commissioner Mathis.
Very good. I want to thank all the parties for that positive settlement, and good luck the rest of the day on this one. And I think that adjourns our entire meeting.
Yep.
We'll see you in February.